All right, with that great music, this is Blake over at DZone team. Today we've got a special Interact edition. If that music didn't get you going, then nothing else will. We got some special people on to talk about this amazing event, which goes down on September 30th of this month, of course. So we've got Nick Hodges, Tomas with the duct tape cam, and Ray Ellentini with the Star Trek cam. So if y'all want to go around and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Nick Hodges. I'm the development team advocate at LinearB and Dev Interrupted, and I'm here to talk about our Interact event coming up.
Great, thanks, Nick. And then we had, so on Dev Interrupted, one of our sort of regulars at DZone talks about Windows, talks about microservices. One of our fan favorite authors, Ray Ellentini, is also on, who has also been on Dev Interrupted.
Thanks, Blake. Yeah, Ray Ellentini. I have my own small consulting group working with ranging from engineering tasks all the way through the CI/CD pipeline and then mentoring folks in Agile.
And last but not least, we've got another DZone regular, also has appeared on Dev Interrupted with the duct tape cam. We've got Tomas.
Hi, guys. I'm a diehard software developer. That's what I can say. Leading a couple of projects these days, and I try to contribute to DZone in my free time. So that's what I do.
Great. Free time's always tough to come by. So if you're going, lots of events this week, but if you're looking for something fun, engaging, DZone's a premier's, I can even talk today, premier sponsor. Take two. DZone is a premier sponsor of Interact, which drops on September 30th. So we're really excited to do that. We're also going to have a very fun after party. I'm still working on the details for that, but expect some invites and more information on that coming soon. What is some of the other fun stuff that people can expect, Nick?
Well, Blake, Interacts, as the sizzle reel showed you, is a interactive engineering leadership conference by engineering leaders for engineering leaders. And we've got about 4 hours of content from noon to 4 Eastern Daylight Time on the 30th of September for you, all about leadership, all about tech leadership, all about interesting things going on with some of the biggest names in the business. We've got panels after our CEO does the welcome and introduction. We've got a panel talking about their experiences as leaders in their startups and whatnot. That includes Yaron Inger of Lightrix, Eyal Levy of Big ID, Amir Hazaz of Insights, and Elinat Orr of Treeverse. And that's going to be followed by a live Dev Interrupted podcast with the VP of Engineering at Twitter, Maria Gutierrez. And that'll be a really fun time. So if you have any questions you'd like to ask Maria Gutierrez, the VP of Engineering at Twitter, send them to me at nick@linearb.io, and we will discuss them. Then Henrik Gulte, I looked up how to pronounce that, so I think I got it right. I'm sorry, Gudle. He's the GM of Azure for Microsoft Canada. He'll be talking about that interesting survey that Microsoft did about remote work and how they feel like it affects productivity and whatnot. I'll look forward to hearing that. Then LinearB COO and co-founder Dan Lines will be talking about data-driven engineering leadership. We'll have Helen Beal, who's the chief ambassador for the DevOps Institute, talking about value stream management, very hot topic, and how it affects your performance. And then at the end of the day, the great Rocco Saboth will be delivering us closing remarks. So that's a star-studded lineup for about 4 hours on the 30th. You can sign up at devinterrupted.com. It's blatantly obvious how to do that if you go to devinterrupted.com.
We got it in the chat.
Love to see you there. Great. Thank you. And then, of course, the highlight will be the Blake-led after party and sponsored by none other than DZone in the Dev Interrupted Discord channel, which you can sign up for at linearb.io/Discord. So that's an exciting, thrilling day of very interesting, high-powered speakers telling us about all kinds of interesting stuff about engineering leadership, help you understand your job better, help you do your job better, help you accelerate your team to do great work. All kinds of fun stuff happening on September 30th.
And one thing I thought was really, for me, might be the funnest is you've got like a lightning round of engineering failures or something like this.
We do, yeah. There's a couple other things going on. In between some of the talks, we'll be having presentations by some folks who have had some spectacular failures. And they're more than willing to talk about them. And that should be interesting, as well as we're going to be giving out some awards to some of our Discord members, Discord community members as well. So that should be fun too. You never know what kind of award somebody will get. So we'll see about that.
All right. So not to put you on the spot, Ray, but what's been your like biggest failure of all times? Go. No kidding.
Well, I can
tell you that, but it'd take a while.
It's funny that you mentioned that because I was thinking about that. I'm actually looking at the site while we're on the video too, and I looked at that and said, I might have to submit something there for discussion.
We'd love to hear it. We're wide open. If you've got one, we want to hear it.
Yeah. So, and then Thomas, I don't know if you've got any like big fails that'd be interesting for you. The interesting one that I like, one of the trends that I see just of late, these like startups coming into the software space, going great, going fine. But the thing that they always put, and we're actually going to do a DZone Live next week on this, but it's really weird. It's like the thing they always put kind of last on the checklist, like we'll get around to that someday, is cloud security. And it just makes no sense to me. Like you're a startup, you're trying to grow, you're trying to stay out of the headlines for bad reasons, but yet you're putting cloud security like, oh yeah, we'll take care of that stuff like some other day. What could go wrong? And all our teams are remote.
What could possibly go wrong?
Right.
Yeah, what can? Yeah. One event that attracted my attention particularly is this chat by Maria Gutierrez from Twitter. I'm really looking forward to hear some stories about that, because here we are talking about software proper, the scale, the sheer size of it. Probably a lot to learn from it. So.
Yeah, that's exactly what she's going to be talking about with Dan. Is general topic will be scaling that engineering process, and I imagine Twitter to source. Anybody remember the fail whale? Remember that back in the day when they were just not able to keep up with the demand for their services? So I haven't seen the fail whale in quite a while, so I'm sure Maria will have some interesting stuff to talk about.
Yeah, whenever Twitter goes down, we just go into Instagram. Very cool. And I got one sort of like, so one thing for that. So looking at the event, what's like one thing here, if anyone's had time to look at it, like what's one thing you're really excited about? For me is like hearing from the failures, because oftentimes all we hear about is how great everything was, right? Mm-hmm. But how much can you really learn from that, right? Like Lakers have LeBron, right? So that's like, so how do you actually make it like as Milwaukee Bucks? What's their story? And then in our scenario, especially with the pandemic remote, sort of hearing about these failures, because you can almost learn more from that than you can hear from like these like award-winning stories.
Nobody wants to hear about the Minnesota Timberwolves, is what you're trying to say, Blake.
Are they still a team? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm from Minnesota, so I can get away with saying that. Yeah. Yeah.
So we got Thomas. Is really looking forward for Twitter. Was anything that jumped out for you, Ray?
Well, the one thing is the reason I jumped on this to sign up for it is that for me, you spend so much time in the weeds, right? Here's an opportunity to get out of the weeds, and look at some of the broader perspectives, from a bunch of different folks who are going to be speaking, and in a nice concise format as well. So it's kind of a combination. I'm really looking forward to the half-day sessions to get out of the weeds, look at some of these broader topics, and say, okay, yeah, that's one I need to look back into again. I haven't been there for a while.
Yeah, that's a great point, Ray. It'll be a nice break during the day here in the United States. I believe all the stuff will be recorded too. So if you can't make it live, please keep an eye on Dev Interrupted for that. But we'd love to have you there. And you can sign up at devinterrupted.com. Blake's got the link there for you in the chat.
Yeah, we got the link in the chat. So one thing while we have everyone here is, so what I'm really interested to hear from everybody that we have for this, since we are talking about engineering leadership, that type of stuff at Interact, what's kind of like one thing that's kind of overlooked now that we're in a pandemic? What's kind of like one thing leadership should be learning, or something in the skill set that they didn't have that the pandemic sort of brought about, that you better have this? What does that kind of like look like? And how do you see like engineering leadership kind of change like over the last 2 years with the pandemic and more teams being remote?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I think Henrik Gutle's talk is going to be very interesting, because he's going to talk about that Microsoft survey. Nice. That they did. And I think it's been in the news, so people have probably heard about it, how Microsoft is of the opinion that remote work has actually reduced productivity. So I think if you're going to consider being full remote all the time, I think you need to at least consider what Microsoft has to say about it. My experience has been different, but these guys did an extensive study, so I'll be very interested to hear what he has to say.
Well, that's exciting. Definitely have to hit that one. Any thoughts from you, Ray?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting, because I think, all of us had time to reflect on this, not because it's been going for so darn long. That, one of the things for me, that I was visiting with a client, and I said, the reason I like to come into the office now is to socialize. Right, not to work, but to actually, hey, let's go out for lunch. Let's go out for dinner. And so I think that's one of the things that's kind of spinning here, is that companies are looking for ways to get people to come into the office for social events, more than work stuff. Which, I mean, that's the part I miss. Being Zoom and all this kind of stuff is fine, but it's not the same as sitting, at a table and talking about sports or something like that, face to face. And so I think that's one of the things that I've seen has been kind of interesting, is that office is looking for the, recreational activities. One of the places I'm working for just had a big cornhole tournament, right? And so they brought everybody in to do that, and had a food truck and that kind of stuff. No work involved, right? Just getting folks together. Yeah. And I think that's pretty cool.
Great. And then Tomas, anything from you?
Well, this whole story is quite fascinating. What's going on with teamwork, with working in the office and stuff like that. Just before the pandemic, I finished a large project with Citibank. So it was a typical large financial institution with a very hierarchical setup of teams and work. And one thing that was kind of a given was this pervasive presence of team managers, team leads of all kinds. There is like one team manager per 2 developers ratio in any such institution. And now all of a sudden, they're out of picture, I'm no longer working there. I still have colleagues busy there, and they say all those folks are gone somewhere. And yet those projects are progressing. So what I'm now waiting for is some kind of a mental revolution in those institutions to happen. Some people will have to realize that this very strict hierarchical institution, which we perceived as impediment in our work, actually was proven to be completely unnecessary, and our suspicions were right. And there is some shakeup going on there. So that's one observation that kind of fascinates me. What's going to happen next? Will they ever adapt, change something in their ways, or will they revert back to this factory-like organization of work? Other aspect, talking about the social side of being in the office, one thing I am missing is my Friday pint. In Ireland, normally when you finish your week on Friday, you just take your pass and go to the nearest pub, and now it just doesn't happen. We did try a few times having a pint online, but it simply won't cut it,
Yeah, I think a lot of companies are working their back to office plans, and what exactly that means, and what they're going to expect, and what they're going to require, and what they're going to not require. And there's a lot of questions out there about that. It's a very interesting topic. And
it's all fluid. It's all fluid.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So
Nice. And how do you like uncover the real senior developer, Thomas?
Well, that's it's a tough question. I try to answer it in one or two interviews, and it's I guess I asked more questions than gave answers so far. But guys from Dev Interrupted actually wanted to talk more about it, so I probably will be organizing a little podcast again, and I'll be trying to drill it down to a more specific, say, recipes for weeding out those who can from those who cannot. In my experience with those large institutions where I used to work, it's kind of a cat and mouse game so far. People come claiming to be way better than they are. Team leaders try to raise the bar when they hire people, knowing that they will be tricked by those who come. In the end, it just doesn't make sense at all. Especially this, nearly every position in places where I used to work is advertised as a position for a senior, which is complete bollocks. Nobody needs just seniors on a team. You need a proper variation, proper gradation of skill. Yet somehow they won't advertise for junior because they're afraid that they will get complete junk. People who didn't even ever touch a keyboard, they just want to start learning now. And there are so many questions and so few answers to this that I don't know. Maybe this whole story with remote work will somehow help with it, because now we are kind of more judged by the actual result of our work. We are more alone in what we do, and this means that real performers will be probably more visible in this crowd than before. It did happen to me back in the old days that some guys who were underperforming, they were still able to piggyback on somebody else's effort, simply because they were sitting next to you. They were asking you constantly, could you help me this? Could you help me that? Then they would send this email saying, hey, I did this and solved that. And you won't say no because you don't want to be a bad guy. But that's how it works. And now it's quite different. We are like lone rangers on our little home offices, and here you can see who is really doing the job and who is just a follower. Maybe that will help. Anyway, plenty loose thoughts now, but as I said, we will be probably coming back to this topic very soon.
Well, yeah, the notion of scaling will definitely be talked about at Interact. I can guarantee you that. Moving from small orgs to large orgs very quickly, that's going to be a topic we'll discuss.
And if you want to go more with Thomas on that, for everybody watching, I've got a link to it in the chat, so you can find it in the chat for Tomas. He's got a great little podcast there where you can go listen to that, do two things at once, do a deep dive there. And then Ray was also on Dev Interrupted, and it's just kind of shocking. So Ray, you're saying that dev teams might actually try to game metrics?
Yeah, it's and it's one of those things, and that's whether you're COVID or not, right? And a lot of it goes down to human nature and how people are incentivized and how they're recognized. Kind of actually interesting. I think it blends what Thomas is saying there from the perspective of that. There's just a lot of human nature in this, and not that people forget that, but if you say you guys have to do this many points per sprint, this many points per sprint are going to get done, right? And whether the work gets done is a different point, right? And so that's the thing I've observed over the years with.
That's why we strongly recommend against using story points as a measure of team performance or individual performance at all. Yeah,
and that's how the conversation got started with Dev Interrupted when I was working. Because I did a presentation on this at a conference that Dan happened to be at. He said, "Oh, let's have you on the podcast," and we talked about this. Right, managers want to see something they can evaluate. The issue is you got to pick the right numbers to look to use for evaluation.
And you need to focus on teams, not individuals. I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Key point in that. Yeah.
Yeah, because I always see that like this.
In my experience, it was always this kind of a struggle. Whatever points you give to those stories, either those things get done or they don't get done in time or not in time. And it was kind of a futile exercise in trying to score things which are very, very hard, very, very difficult to attach a number to. But it's been kind of a ritual that indeed probably helps managers more than developers. For a developer, it was annoyance. For them, it was something that they could put on a chart, and that's it. We need some better metrics. Definitely not something made up like this.
Yeah, I think that's very cool because you look in like separately, like in support world. So like one of the biggest metrics they do is average time to reply. And so if they're going out anywhere trying to get support, like everywhere it's gotten so good at being like, hey, Ray, hey, Nick, thanks so much for your question. Someone will be right with you.
Yeah.
ATR is off the charts. And then you never hear from anyone ever again. So it's like they got their metric, they're done. But it's kind of interesting when I look at the schedule. So like, speaking of kind of like going off the metric stuff, right? So we've got Henrik at 11 Pacific talking about Microsoft's research into the developer velocity, that study. So that's really cool stuff that's going to be going on there. And then DZone himself, Dan Lyons from LinearB, cycle time, and I think there's another one that's always here for Dan. It's going to be talking about data-driven engineering leadership. So really love the kind of from that data-driven stuff because you can either be driven with the wrong data, kind of shiny data, which is all good, but if it's not moving your company in the direction it should or teams in the direction, it's like you're just doing a whole pageantry and your competition is probably going to eat your lunch. So it's really, for me, it's like if I had to go to like one of those two are like some of the best ones there, kind of the gems that we're doing it on this conference on that day. So those are going to be some really good ones for some of the data-driven side of things. I don't know if there's any other data-driven ones there, but those are going to be really good.
Yeah, Dan's definitely going to be talking about how you can choose the right and wrong metrics and how choosing the wrong metrics can be very destructive and choosing the right ones can be very edifying. So that should be good. Yeah. Well,
you can definitely run into, even if you're kind of going back to the gaming thing to some extent, you go, I pose a question is that, how can, everybody goes into a room and sees a presentation and the metrics are great. And in everybody's gut, the project is not getting done. Right. And so, I mean, if you've been around for a while, your gut's telling you we are not close to getting this thing done. But look, everything's green on the board. Right. And it's a very challenging thing to deal with.
It becomes a goal in itself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Anything that gets measured becomes a focus point, and you want to make sure that if you're measuring something, you actually want that. To be careful what you ask for, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. So yeah, September 30th should be a fun day, and hope you sign up.
So we'll see if we got any questions here. One thing, while everybody's here, for just to hear from your perspectives, we all go to so many like events that are like watching the paint dry, things like that. So what are some of the things that you're doing, like when you go to virtual events? Like, what's one or three things like people should be doing to get more out of it, right? Is there something like that we can tell people like, hey, if you're going to virtual events, don't just sit there, blah, blah, blah. What is kind of like some of the like one or three things that people could do to get even more out of the virtual events that they're going to?
I think we want this to be a real community-driven event. And so we encourage people to engage with the speakers, with each other on the chat inside of the tool. And then afterwards, we'd love to have people join the after party in our Discord channel, Discord server, the Dev Interrupted Discord server. So yeah, I think the number one thing you can do is just interact with other people and the speakers and everybody involved. And not be afraid to chat, not be afraid to jump in the chat and express your opinion.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably what keeps me from walking away to having my coffee. When I can ask a question or jump in just right during the talk. I probably don't. We probably don't want that to disturb the speaker all the time. But if they would give some hints or arrange the talk in a way that there are slots where now there is safe time to comment on what has been discussed so far. So this will keep people at the monitor and not start reading other news or.
Yep.
I think so. I think, and I know that, so I have spoken at a couple of virtual events as well as attended more, is that, so as a speaker, you don't see your audience. And so knowing, getting, feedback is great because somebody's there, paying attention. But I think for me personally, when I attend, I what helps me focus is, I deliberately look for a question to ask, which means you've got to pay attention so your question hopefully is relevant, right? And so I make a personal task to say, I'm going to ask a question in this event. Or in this talk, I'm going to listen for what the appropriate question for me would be.
Good call, Ray. Yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, we got a comment here in the chat, so let's see what they got to say here. So on Facebook, Eddie Bett says, a lot of online workshops do not work out correctly when you check them out from GitHub. Some do, and they're great. The rest are something of a waste of time.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I am very confident that Interact will not be a waste of time. So,
what platform, by the way, will it run on? Which platform?
Hopin. We're running it on Hopin platform.
Okay.
Yeah, the latest and greatest. Very excited. Right. Very happy to be on that platform. Really good.
All right, so that's pretty much everything we have for today. Anything else we should cover, Nick? We've already gone about 30 minutes, so it's been pretty amazing.
No problem. I just appreciate everybody's attention, appreciate attendance, and I think it'll be a great event. A lot of good speakers, a lot of good content, a lot of fun, a lot of interesting stuff happening in between the talks. And by the way, I didn't mention I am emceeing the event. So in between the talks, you're going to hear my voice, which I know will probably draw another couple hundred people just for that alone, I would think.
Do you have your tuxedo set for it or not?
Is there a dress code?
I'm working on that. I actually am going to be wearing my Interrupted t-shirt, but that's
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, no dress code, just formal, whatever you're most comfortable in, whether it's like a Yoda mask or slippers. For
me, it will be evening, so I'll be rather casual, yeah. You guys all based in US, I guess, yeah?
Dev Interrupted and LinearB are based in the US and in Israel.
Yeah, all right. I'm still in Europe, enjoying the freedom of remote work. I've spent a couple of months in Sicily, the summer in France, and now I decided to move to Sicily permanently from this cold island. So actually next week we are flying off to new sunny pastures down there.
That's great.
Wow. So you're about to move to Sicily, Italy?
Yeah.
Whoa.
I spent like 7 years in Dublin, in Ireland. I have enough of rain and wind, and now that all the pubs were closed and all the music places were down, it was just pointless to stay there. So
well, Sicily sounds great.
Yeah, it's awesome. Once you're there, you just you don't want to leave. So I left it with tears in my eyes, and 3 months later, I decided let's go back. This time for good. So.
Wow! Congratulations on that. That's amazing to kind of get to be in a place like that and still do the same thing. Like my generation still is like, if you work somewhere, you have to be like by the mothership or a satellite office. Right? This whole like paradigm shift of being anywhere in the world is so weird. It's like, where the heck?
Absolutely, yeah.
Where the heck is my dream spot like that? So it's just great that people are not only like working at a great place, but living at a place to help to aid that in some other dreams.
It's a bit dangerous because there is actually a risk that someday I'll get drawn into fishing or beekeeping and completely abandon this programming because
I'd love to keep bees. I think beekeeping would be great. I'd love that.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll stick around for a few years, I guess.
Yeah, and I think hobbies are always great. They always like parallel back into like refreshing your mind, or you learn things from those things that you translate back into your work. But it's like even for me, it's like just we've got this American Tobacco Road Trail in Durham. It's like 25 miles of nature with these giant pine trees. So I can just not take my iPhone, just go and just reset from there, and it just like does wonders. So, and everybody has to find, whether it's fishing, beekeeping, whatever that is, and not as cool as Sicily, Italy, but it's where that works. All right, but yeah, so we definitely reaching the end of all this stuff here. And it's going to be really cool. So Interact, September 30th. You've got all the links out there. We'll follow up on social with some stuff there. Definitely thanks to having Nick from the team. We'll be sure to put a link to his Twitter where you can retweet him, like his tweets, discover more from Nick. He's got some great articles on DZone as well. And also two of our like really best writers, contributors on DZone is Ray and Tomas. So if you haven't checked out their articles on DZone, we've got a link to those in chat. Really, when you're reading that's just some of the best content that you're going to find anywhere. So definitely be sure to go and check those out. Otherwise, we'll see everybody on September 30th. This is free. Go sign up. Tell your friends.
Totally free.
Tell their friends. Let's see. I think me and Nick will be hitting up some. We'll be doing a road tour. So just look for us. We could be at your grocery store handing out flyers, or
anywhere. We can pop up anywhere.
Yeah, we can be anywhere. We are going to go out and get the word. So,
we'll keep spreading the word. Sure.
This is not that boring webinar event where you just fall asleep. This is like for all of us. This is basically by the sort of engineering leadership and devs for them, right? We speak your language. If you've seen the Spider-Man meme of two Spider-Mans pointing at each other, so you're coming to a place, a safe place where people get you, where we're going to be talking about really authentic things. So definitely come out on September 30th for that. And with that, thanks for everybody here today for our first ever DZone Live Interact. And we hope wherever you are, you're doing great. And we can't wait to see these Sicily, Italy photos from Thomas. Have a great move. That's got to be crazy. So, but thanks again, and we'll be in touch, everyone. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Blake.
Thanks, Blake.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.